What's up guys, Asian here again with another PTS video. Today we're going to be going over the patch notes 5.1.2. So this is the third week of the PTS, which means we're going to see some of the more significant changes now. So this is the patch where we start to see a lot of the different balance changes that have basically been a result of the feedback that have been given over the past 2 weeks. Now, some of the feedback, like for example from week 2, might not necessarily be in this particular patch notes iteration. It might be next week, or it might even be week 5. But at the very least, we'll get an idea of which direction this patch is going to go and sort of what changes are most likely to stick with this patch notes. So again, we'll be covering just the PvE stuff and how it impacts PvE. We might touch a little bit on PvP, but for the most part, we're just going to be taking a look at the PvE side of things here. So starting off first, talking about Imperial City. For the indirect stuff, these are known issues right now on the PTS. So they are telling us that they will be doing a lot of other balance tweaks in a future PTS patch. Now, the wording is kind of ambiguous whether they mean this particular PTS like Scalebreaker, or they mean the next cycle of the PTS. For right now, we're assuming that they're talking about Scalebreaker. So it is likely that a lot of these item sets will be rebalanced either next week or the following week. We are assuming that this PTS does follow a 5-week cycle here. So we'll have to wait and see exactly which sets they decide to kind of tweak a little bit. Hidden Blade and its morphs will receive some adjustments to how brutality is granted, and Flying Blade will get a target responsiveness improvement to activate its special teleport. This will be coming in a future patch. So the guys who are running Hidden Blade, there's going to be some changes coming in. Maelstrom's Dual Wield set is currently enabling too much damage with the dot refactor. It will be readjusted to tone down the total weapon and spell damage, but will get some improvements to its usability in a fluid rotation. This change will be in a future PTS patch. So it does seem like the Maelstrom Dual Wield is going to be nerfed. We kind of had an idea that it was coming, especially on stamina DPS, where it's basically just VMA dot VMA dot VMA dot so on and so forth. What this actually means, we'll have to wait and see whether this means that it's not going to be the best in slot anymore, or if it means that we're going to have to go back to running like Lakesti's front bar or some other set on the front bar rather than VMA. Again, remains to be seen. The future PTS patch might be next week, it might be the 5th week. We'll have to wait and see on that. Soul Splitting Trap currently bypasses our single target rule set, making it far stronger than other options. This is a known increase and will be adjusting this ability in a future patch to bring it more in line with standards. So Soul Splitting Trap will be nerfed, so it'll remain to be seen whether it'll remain in the arsenal for PvE DPS. Sorks currently lack an ability they can utilize to heal their allies with supplemental power, such as a heal over time. We have some adjustments to Power Surge Morph of Surge in a future update that will help grant them such a tool. Now, the wording here is different because now it's not saying future PTS patch, it's saying future update, update being capitalized here. So for those guys who kind of aren't really familiar with nomenclature, an update, a capital uppercase U here, typically speaks to an actual DLC or expansion release cycle. So for example, this would be update, I believe, 23, elsewhere was update 22, and going all the way back up to update 1, which would, I believe, technically be the actual very release of the game, I believe. So when they say future update, my thinking is this is not going to be coming in Scalebreaker. It's going to be coming on the DLC that's going to be coming after Scalebreaker. So that's what I'm interpreting this as. It might just be sort of like ambiguous still. It might actually be this PTS patch. But the uppercase U update seems to indicate to me that it's not going to be on the Scalebreaker patch. It'll probably be in the next DLC. Moving on here, they fixed a couple things with templates. Not that big of a deal. A couple of fixes to elsewhere. Scalebreaker, they made a few changes here with the dungeons. So far I've only done Moongrave Fane. I have not had a chance yet to do Lair of Marsalok, but the big things here would be just looking through all of these. So this is really good. The AoEs won't trigger the Reflect. That's basically when you guys might have seen the videos that we've done doing Moongrave Fane. When he goes ahead and starts the lava geysers coming out, he has a reflection on him, so AoEs apparently were activating the reflection, which would be why some of our DPS were dying so quickly. So now that that's no longer there, it should be a little bit easier on the fight there. Run Wolf in Power, this is the last boss here. So the increase the damage done per tick of drain vitality, that is the dot that I have to purge as the tank here. Sanguinary shackle, that is the shackle move. They changed how that works. Circulation projectiles, not 100% sure what those are. Can only force like this off. This is shout move. When his elemental fear is active, he now swings the sword differently when casting heavy attacks. Okay, that's helpful. That actually explains why he had 2 different heavy attack timings. So that's actually helpful there. But beyond that, on hard mode, lowered overall damage output. So it looks like they did a little bit of a nerf. They redesigned Ghastly Wound, decreased. Looks like it's generally speaking going to be a slight nerf. You probably don't want your healer to be affected by Ghastly Wound. It seems like heals and shields cast by a player with the wound are now less effective, but you will get additional weapon and spell damage. So it looks like it's a change, small nerf here. It seems like that. Heals and shields cast by a player with drained vitality now less affected. That would be the tank. So overall, seems like they did a couple of things here. I would probably say this is generally speaking going to be a overall nerf to just reading through all of this, compared to what we did on Moongrave Fane hard mode last week. So this is definitely going to be a little bit easier, I think, on the hard mode. Lair of Marshluck I have not done yet, so I'm not 100% sure in what all these abilities are talking about. Moving on to gameplay, combat and gameplay. This is where the meat of their conversation is going to be held. So for Dragon Knights, Corrosive Armor, this is the ultimate ability here. I should say one of the morphs of the ultimate ability under the Earth and Heart line. Penetration granted from this ability now only applies to the ability itself and direct damage attacks or channel attacks like Flurry. They say that if we develop a comment under the two-handed onslaught changes, which has similar adjustments. So it doesn't seem like it'll work on dots anymore, which probably is going to be more for a PvP kind of thing. This particular ultimate is not used on stam DKs and PvE. So the penetration, I'd imagine, on live right now is affecting dot damage. So you're getting the full penetration for all your dots, which is probably going to be a little bit overpowered in PvP, although I haven't actually seen any builds actually use Corrosive Armor in PvP all too much, but then again, I don't know PvP enough, so hey, maybe that is a strategy that I'm just not really aware of. Ardent Flame, Searing Heat, the rank 2 of the passive now increases the duration of the effective abilities by 4 seconds, up from 2 seconds, and also increases the damage dealt of the abilities by 10%, up from 3%. And their comment is, the changes were done to ensure these abilities keep up with the current dot standards. Well, that is just fine and dandy. How about instead of changing the passive, you actually change the damage output for each of the abilities there? That might actually be a better idea rather than changing the passive itself. Then again, it's their game. They can do whatever they want. But if the idea is, hey, we need to buff the passive to get these abilities up to their current dot standards, why not just buff the abilities themselves? So kind of a roundabout way of doing it that way. Nightblade, under the Sap Essence morph for drained power. Increased the healing from this ability by 23.3%. And they fixed a couple of issues here where the healing actually wasn't going through if you were casting the ability in rapid successions. Under the Sork line, Conjured Ward, which is the base morph of the shield, increased the shield size limit to 50%, up from 40%, and the Hardened Ward is now 60% from 50%. So overall increase in shield size, and it does seem like Light Armor Annulment also received the same treatment here. Under Warden's Arctic Wind, they updated the healing, so the initial heal now scales off 25% of our max health, up from 15%. While the heal over time scales off 3% of your max health, down from 5%, and it'll happen over 5 seconds rather than 10. So if I'm reading this correctly, that means Arctic Wind is the self-heal for Warden tanks. Typically speaking, it's not a very strong heal. On live right now, I believe it heals 15% of your health, max health right away, and then it heals, I want to say, 4% of your health over 10 seconds, 4% per tick, and I think it's every 2 seconds it ticks, I think, so a total of an additional, or maybe it's every 1 second. I don't remember whether it's 1 second or 2 seconds, but overall, it's not as strong of a heal, at least a burst heal compared to something like Green Dragon Blood. So now the initial heal will automatically heal 25% of your max health, so quarter heal, then it heals 3% of your max health over 5 seconds, so probably going to be a tick per second, so that you'll get 40% of your max healing done over 5 seconds with a quarter of your health done immediately. So a little bit better for burst heal, but I think this should be overall a little bit of a nerf to your overall healing. I'll have to kind of go back and see what the actual tick frequency is on live right now. For the Budding Seed morph for Healing Seed, this morph now also introduces a heal over time while the AoE grows. If the ability is consumed early, this heal over time is also consumed. So pretty nice buff for Warden healers here. So now as long as you have Budding Seeds down, and for those of you guys who don't know how Budding Seeds work, after 6 seconds it automatically blooms and you get that burst heal going. Or you can hit the ability twice, so it immediately blooms and you just get that burst heal right away. So it does seem like while it is growing, over those 6 seconds you do have a heal over time, so it is basically much working probably more like a healing springs with a very nice big burst heal at the end, and you do have the option of just going straight for that burst heal too if you just double tap on that ability there. So overall, really nice buff to Warden healers there. Now for weapons, two-handed, Dizzying Swing will now rank up in damage again. Momentum will no longer grant major evasion and will instead grant minor endurance. Originally, major evasion was meant to grant two-handed and more natural source of major evasion. However, this led to a situation where momentum felt too good to pass up, and it was eclipsing other skills that also granted the bonus. Onslaught, which is the ultimate for two-handed, the penetration now only applies to direct damage and channeled attacks, and they reduced the duration to 12 seconds from 16. These changes were done to reduce situations where you could stack multiple damage over time effects on an enemy, activate this ability, and freely reap the benefits of ignoring a target's mitigation. So, like I said, probably the dot thing. This is probably going to be more for PvP, less so for PvE. Illustrious Healing, which is one of the morphs of the first skill, basically Healing Springs, increased the healing per tick of this ability by approximately 50% to better distinguish each morph. One focused on resource sustain, one focused on raw healing potential. Now, 50% increased healing per tick is going to be overall, should be mathematically a 50% increase to overall healing output. So Illustrious Healing is going to be a very strong heal over time now for healers. So if you need to sustain, Healing Springs is still probably going to be the best option. But Illustrious Healing, if you're able to sustain Illustrious Healing, this is going to be the far superior option just for that massive heal that you're going to be getting. Under the Destro staff line, Flame Clench will no longer rank up in stun duration and will rank up in damage per rank, and they increase the base stun duration to 3 seconds. And they fixed the issue with Trifocus where the AoE damage while using a heavy attack was not activating with the Trifocus passive. Annulment got the same treatment that we mentioned above with the Sorks, so the base ability and Hardest Magicka is now 50% of your max health, while Death Magic is now 60%. No developer comment. The changes were done to increase the shield's strengths in situations where the caster was focusing more into increasing their effectiveness by specializing more stats into them. I'm not sure about that. Right now, PvE DPS, you can easily hit the shield cap there. Even tanks, like Sork tanks for example, can get fairly respectable shield sizes with only like 20k Magicka. So I'm not sure whether they actually changed the formula for determining how big your shield is, but hey, more shields for everybody, more shields for Magicka DPS. Under the Undaunted line, Energy Orb, which is the healing orb, increased the healing per tick of this ability by 20% since the morph only converted functionality without necessarily improving it. Combustion and Healing Combustion, which are the synergies of orbs. These synergies will no longer remove their parent abilities when activated. This means a single orb can now provide a synergy to anyone in its path and will not be removed for other players once it is activated. So this is the change that we were waiting for here. So for those guys who haven't been kind of keeping up here, orbs have been changed. You can only have one orb out at a time now, very similar to shards, how you can only have one shard out at a time for those of you guys who play Templar healers or Templar DPS. So on the PTS over the past 2 weeks, whenever an orb went out and the synergy was consumed, the orb would pop and it would disappear. Now the orb will stay out on the field for the duration of basically 10 seconds. And anybody can activate the synergy as long as they're off that cooldown. So basically what this means is your one single energy orb is going to go through the DPS group, and each of the DPS can in turn use the synergy without removing the orb. So overall this should be a buff. It is definitely something that is required, or I'd argue required at least, with the changes for with the one orb only sort of thing here. Itemization and item sets. They fixed a couple of issues with Bloody Mara. Glyph of Bashing was improved. Night Flame was changed. This is Bogdan. This is the Monster Helm set. It has a 10% chance to proc on healing, up from 5%, so it should proc far more often now. They increased the cooldown to 10 seconds from 6 seconds, so lower uptime. They reduced the healing per tick by about 27%, so Bogdan, Big Dan, has been nerfed. Sentinel and Rkugamz, they reduced the healing per tick by about 5%, and they reduced the stamina per tick to 500 from 524, so a little bit of a nerf, but not that big, at least not compared to Bogdan at least. And 7th Legion, this is probably going to affect PvP people more than PvE. So this item set can now only be activated when casting an ability that increases your resistances instead of any time your resistances increases. This means that things such as passives, potions, or poisons can no longer trigger this effect. Okay. So that's that changed there. So you have to be casting an active ability there to increase your resistances. So basically anything that gives you major ward, minor ward, major resolve would give you the 7th Legion proc bonus there. Thunderous Volley, this item set will now retain its bonus if you bar swap before it can first register its damage. So this was a well-known, we're not sure if it was an issue or if it was an actual feature of the set. This is the VMA bow, where if you used Endless Hail and then bar swap before the first tick of damage happened, you actually didn't get the VMA bonus. So it does seem like they have changed it, so you do retain that bonus now. With this change, hopefully this means the VMA bow is completely fixed on the PTS, and I'll be able to revisit the Maelstrom versus Master's Bow backbar for stamina DPS. So be on the lookout for that video coming up later this week. But moving on there, all the basic game stuff here doesn't really matter all too much here. Nothing really affecting overall combat. So generally speaking, far fewer changes than I anticipated. Some of them changes were kind of unexpected. For example, the nerf to Night Flame, the nerf to Rkugamz, the buff to shields. The orb change, we were anticipating this coming up this PTS, so we were expecting the orb change here, but there were a couple of changes here that we didn't really quite expect here. So for example, the heal over time from budding seeds, we weren't expecting that, but that's a nice addition, nice buff overall. The Arctic wind change for wardens, so should be pretty good for tanks and so on. And the shield change should improve overall magicka survivability. It should be pretty easy to hit those shield caps in PvE at the very least. PvP, probably a little bit more challenging just because of battle spirit, but for PvE, generally speaking, this is going to be an overall improvement to your survivability. So that is it for this video. Just as a reminder, please let me know down in the comment section below if you guys have anything you would like me to test. Again, according to my community post on my YouTube channel, I will not be actually testing out any builds, but if there's anything else you want me to take a look at, feel free to comment and I will explore that for you. And if I feel it is relevant enough, I'll definitely go ahead and make a video on that as well. So hope you guys found this video informative, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.